The massive arena on Space Station X-42 buzzed with excitement. Alien spectators from 100 different worlds packed the stands, their voices mixing into a thunderous roar. Today marked the start of the Grand Galactic Battle Ring Championship, the most prestigious fighting tournament in the known universe. At the registration desk, 3 alien officials looked up from their screens in surprise. A human stood before them. Tall and confident, but still shorter than most of the other fighters around him. Jack Stone waited patiently while they checked and rechecked their rules, clearly confused by his presence. There must be some mistake, the first official said, his green scales shimmering under the bright lights. No human has ever entered the battle ring. No rule against it, Jack replied simply. His calm voice made the officials even more confused. He placed his identification chip on the scanner, and his military record from Earth appeared on their screens. The second official, a being made of shifting crystal, leaned forward. You understand that contestants die in this tournament. Many die in just the first round. Jack nodded. I understand the risks. He kept his face neutral, but inside he smiled at their concern. These aliens, like so many others, thought humans were weak. They had no idea what humans could really do. Word of the human contestant spread quickly through the arena. In the waiting area, other fighters pointed and laughed. They towered over Jack, some twice his size, others with extra arms or armor-like skin. A rock-skinned giant from a high-gravity world flexed his muscles and smirked. A 6-armed warrior practicing with energy blades barely gave Jack a second look. The crowd's reaction was even worse. When Jack's name and image appeared on the giant screens, the whole arena erupted in laughter. Some spectators shouted jokes about sending a medic team early. Others wondered aloud if the human had a death wish. Only one being wasn't laughing. In the corner of the waiting area, an old warrior watched Jack with interest. His blue-tinted skin wore the scars of countless battles, and his eyes held the wisdom of experience. While others mocked, he saw how Jack moved, careful, controlled, always aware of his surroundings. The registration process continued as Jack went through the medical scans. The doctors were surprised by his test results. His endurance levels were off their charts, and his reaction times were exceptional for what they expected from a human. Still, they warned him again about the dangers. Your species is not built for this kind of combat, the head doctor insisted. Your bones are too fragile, your skin too soft. One good hit from any of these fighters could kill you. Jack just smiled. Thanks for your concern, he said politely. He didn't bother explaining that humans had something these aliens didn't understand. The ability to adapt, to think differently, to keep going when others would quit. As the day went on, Jack explored the arena complex. He watched holovids of previous tournaments, studying how different species fought. In the practice area, he did simple exercises, nothing flashy. Other fighters ignored him now, thinking he wasn't worth their attention. But the blue-skinned warrior, who everyone called Blue, kept watching. Finally, Blue approached him. They underestimate you, he said in a quiet voice. This is good. Let them laugh now. Jack looked up at him, surprised by the first friendly words he'd heard all day. You've fought in the ring before. Blue nodded, touching a long scar on his arm. 15 tournaments. Won 3. Lost many friends. But I've never seen a human fight here. He paused, studying Jack's face. You're different from what they think. I can tell. Before Jack could respond, the tournament matchups appeared on the screens. The crowd roared as they saw the first fight. Jack Stone versus Rock, the granite-skinned giant who had mocked him earlier. The betting odds showed up next, 100-1 against the human. Blue put a hand on Jack's shoulder. They say humans are too weak for the ring. Tomorrow, show them what they don't understand about your kind. Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on the screen, already planning his strategy. Tomorrow, the laughing would stop. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that humanity's strength wasn't in its muscles or armor, but in something far more powerful the unbreakable spirit of a species that had fought its way up from the mud of its world to reach the stars. The night before his first fight, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat in his small preparation room, watching recordings of previous tournaments on the holographic display. His mind drifted back to his training days on Earth, remembering the lessons that had brought him here. 10 years ago, he had been just another soldier in Earth's special forces. That was before first contact, before humanity learned they weren't alone in the universe. He remembered the day their commanders told them about the alien races, about how physically superior they were to humans in almost every way. But Jack's old commander had taught him something important. They might be stronger, he had said, but strength isn't everything. Humans have something special. We never stop adapting, never stop learning, never stop pushing our limits. A knock on the door interrupted his memories. It was Blue, carrying 2 containers of something that steamed in the cold station air. "You should eat," the alien warrior said, offering one to Jack. "Tomorrow will test your strength." Jack accepted the container, finding something like soup inside. As they ate, Blue told stories of past tournaments. He described fighters who had seemed unbeatable, champions who had fallen, and underdogs who had surprised everyone. But mostly, he talked about the different ways each species fought. The rock people like rock. They rely on their strength and tough skin. They think they can't be hurt, so they never learn to dodge. The quick ones with many arms, they depend too much on their speed. And the energy wielders, they forget that sometimes the simplest attack works best. Jack listened carefully, adding each detail to what he had learned from the recordings. On the holographic display, Rock's previous fights played one after another. The giant fighter had won every match the same way, crushing his opponents with brute force. "Why are you helping me?" Jack finally asked. Blue's expression changed, showing something like sadness. "I have fought for 30 years. I have seen every kind of warrior from every corner of the galaxy. But humans are different. You adapt. You learn. You survive things that should kill you. The others don't understand this yet." As Blue spoke, Jack pulled out a small device from his bag. It projected a map of Earth, showing all its different environments. Frozen poles, burning deserts, deep oceans, high mountains. On our world, he explained, we learn to survive everywhere. We learn to use tools, to think differently, to keep going when everything said we should stop. Blue nodded slowly. This is what the others don't see. They think fighting is only about being strong or fast or tough. They never learn that the mind can be the strongest weapon. They spent the next hour studying Rock's fighting style. The giant had patterns he didn't even know about, always attacking from the same side, always taking 3 steps before his biggest hits, always leaving the same openings because no one had ever been quick enough to use them. But remember, Blue warned, he's not stupid. If your first plan fails, he will adapt too, just not as quickly as a human can. As the station's artificial night cycle deepened, Jack started his preparation routine. He didn't practice flashy moves or power strikes like the other fighters. Instead, he did simple exercises, stretching, breathing, moving in ways that looked boring, but kept his body ready for anything. Some other fighters passed by his door, pointing and laughing at his weak human exercises. Jack ignored them, focusing on his own preparation. He knew something they didn't. Humans had spent thousands of years learning to fight smarter, not harder. Before leaving, Blue watched Jack's careful preparation with approval. They expect you to try to match Rock's strength, he said. They expect you to lose trying to fight like them. Jack smiled slightly. Then they'll be surprised tomorrow. Yes, Blue agreed. Tomorrow, they learn that humans are not what they seem. Tomorrow, they learn why your species survived on a world that should have killed you long ago. As the lights dimmed for night cycle, Jack finished his preparations. In his mind, he could already see how the fight would go. Not how Rock expected it to go, with a quick victory for the stronger alien, but how it would really happen, with a human showing the galaxy that sometimes the cleverest fighter beats the strongest one. The arena roared with excitement as Rock entered the battle ring. The granite-skinned giant raised his arms, and the crowd cheered even louder. The betting screens showed the odds had gotten even worse for Jack, now 200 to 1 against him. When Jack walked in, the cheering turned to laughter. He looked tiny compared to Rock, who stood 3 times his size. The human wore simple fighting clothes, while Rock's stone-like skin gleamed under the bright lights. In the stands, aliens were already celebrating Rock's victory. "Last chance to give up, little human," Rock called out, his voice booming across the arena. "I don't want to be known as the one who killed the first human in the ring." Jack didn't reply. He took his position, his eyes focused on his opponent. In the fighter's area, Blue watched carefully, probably the only one who noticed how Jack was already moving. Small steps, testing the ring's surface, finding the best spots for what he had planned. The fight bell rang. Rock charged forward exactly as Jack expected, throwing a massive punch that would have crushed a normal opponent. But Jack wasn't there anymore. He moved just enough to avoid the hit, letting Rock's own momentum carry him forward. The crowd's laughter died a little. They had expected the human to be hit immediately. Rock turned, looking annoyed. He attacked again, and again Jack moved just enough to stay safe. The giant's fists hit nothing but air. Now the crowd was getting confused. This wasn't how fights usually went in the ring. "Stand still and fight." Rock roared, launching a series of powerful attacks. Each one could have ended the fight, but none of them landed. Jack moved like water, always just out of reach, making the smallest movements necessary to avoid being hit. 5 minutes passed. Rock's attacks started getting slower. The giant wasn't used to missing so much, wasn't used to an opponent he couldn't hit. Sweat appeared on his stone-like skin. The crowd had stopped laughing entirely. That's when Jack attacked for the first time. He didn't try to match Rock's strength. Instead, he struck at the exact moment Rock was off balance, hitting specific points that Blue had helped him identify. The giant stumbled, surprised more than hurt. "Is that all?" Rock laughed, but his voice didn't sound as confident anymore. Jack stayed silent, continuing his strategy. He moved around the ring, always just out of reach, striking only when Rock was vulnerable. Each hit was precisely aimed at the same spots. The joints, the places where even stone-like skin had to bend. 10 minutes passed. Rock's breathing got heavier. His attacks became wilder, easier to predict. The giant had never had to fight this long before. Most of his matches ended in the first minute. But Jack kept going, showing no signs of getting tired. In the stands, the aliens watched in growing shock. They had expected a quick, brutal fight. Instead, they were seeing something different, a demonstration of human endurance and strategy. 15 minutes in, Rock made his biggest mistake. Frustrated and tired, he put too much power into a punch. Jack didn't just dodge this time. He used Rock's own strength against him, adding a small push at exactly the right moment. The giant lost his balance completely, crashing to the ground with a sound that shook the arena. Before Rock could recover, Jack struck with his first full power attack of the match, hitting a pressure point that Blue had told him about. The giant's stone-like body went stiff, then limp. The referee counted down. Rock tried to get up but couldn't. For the first time in his fighting career, the giant had been defeated. The arena went completely silent. Jack helped Rock stand up, showing respect to his fallen opponent. The giant stared at him in confusion, still trying to understand how he had lost to someone so much smaller. "How?" Rock asked quietly. "Humans don't have to be the strongest," Jack replied. "We just have to be smart about how we use our strength." The silence broke as Blue started clapping. Slowly, others joined in. The applause grew until the whole arena was cheering, not mocking cheers this time, but real ones. They had just seen something they'd never expected. A human using intelligence and endurance to defeat raw power. On the screens above, Jack's odds for the next round changed dramatically. No one was laughing at the human fighter anymore. News of the human's victory spread quickly through Space Station X-42. Aliens gathered around screens replaying the fight, studying how a small human had defeated one of the strongest fighters in the tournament. In the betting halls, fortunes had been lost by those who wagered against Jack. Jack sat in the medical bay, letting the doctors check him for injuries. They seemed surprised to find him barely hurt. A small crowd of reporters waited outside, all wanting to know more about this human who had changed everything they thought they knew about his species. In a private room high above the arena, Lord Crimson watched the fight recordings with growing concern. The tall, red-skinned alien lord had made his fortune controlling the betting rings, and he always knew who would win each fight. But this human had ruined his perfectly planned tournament. "This changes everything," Lord Crimson told his advisors. "If humans can defeat our strongest fighters, they are more dangerous than we thought. The other human colonies might get bold. They might start demanding more rights, more territories." His assistant nodded. "The betting houses lost millions on this fight, and the odds for his next match are almost even. No one wants to bet against him anymore." Lord Crimson's eyes narrowed. "Then we must make sure he doesn't win again. Find out everything about this human. Everyone has a weakness." Meanwhile, Blue found Jack in the training area, practicing as if he hadn't just won a major fight. "You should be celebrating," Blue said. "Not many fighters beat Rock in their first match." Jack kept practicing his movements. "Something feels wrong. That fight got too much attention." Blue's expression turned serious. "You're right to be careful. Lord Crimson runs the betting rings. He lost big money on your fight. He won't let that happen again." As if proving Blue's point, a group of alien fighters walked past, glaring at Jack. They had been friendly with Rock before the fight. Now they saw Jack as a threat, not just to the tournament but to their species' pride. "They're afraid," Blue explained. "Not just of you, but of what you represent. If one human can do this, what about the others? Some powerful people don't want humans to be seen as equals." Jack nodded, understanding more now. His victory wasn't just about one fight. It was about politics, about the place of humans in the galaxy. Many alien species had treated humans like children, giving them small colonies and limited rights. Now they worried that might change. Later that day, Jack checked the matchups for his next fight. His opponent would be Swift, a six-armed warrior known for moving faster than the eye could follow. But something about the announcement felt wrong to Blue. "This isn't right," Blue said quietly. Swift was supposed to fight in a different bracket. Someone changed the matches. He looked around carefully before continuing. "Be ready. They'll try to stop you before you can change any more minds about humans." That night, Jack found his food tasted strange and left it untouched. His practice equipment seemed slightly damaged, as if someone had tried to sabotage it. Even the air system in his room had mysterious problems. "They're testing you," Blue warned, trying to find out how much it takes to break a human. But they didn't understand something important about humans. Pressure didn't break them. It made them stronger. Each attempt to stop Jack only made him more determined. In the station's viewing lounge, aliens watched Earth news reports about the tournament. Human colonies across the galaxy celebrated Jack's victory. Young humans signed up for fighting classes, proud of their species for the first time since meeting alien life. Lord Crimson watched these reports too, his anger growing. If this human wins again, others will follow. They'll start believing they can compete with us, fight with us, rule with us. He turned to his assistants. "Make sure Swift understands what needs to be done. The human must not just lose, he must be humiliated. The galaxy needs to remember why humans stay in their small colonies." But as Jack prepared for his next fight, he remembered something his commander once said. "Humans have survived everything Earth could throw at us. Ice ages, plagues, disasters. We survived because we never quit, never stopped fighting, never accepted defeat. Tomorrow, He would show them again what that meant. The arena felt different as Jack entered for his fight against Swift. The crowd wasn't laughing anymore, but they weren't cheering either. They watched in tense silence, wondering if the human's first victory had been luck. Swift stood in the ring, 6 arms moving in constant motion. Each hand held a different practice weapon, all safe for tournament use but still capable of causing serious pain. The alien fighter moved like liquid mercury, never staying still. Blue had warned Jack about this fight. Swift isn't like Rock. He won't get tired. Those extra arms aren't just for show. He can attack 6 different ways at once. The warning proved true the moment the fight began. Swift attacked with incredible speed, all 6 arms moving in different patterns. Jack barely dodged the first wave of strikes, and 2 hits caught him on the shoulder and leg. The crowd roared, expecting the human to fall quickly. But Jack stayed up. He moved differently now, not trying to avoid every hit like he had with Rock. Instead, he took some glancing blows to protect himself from worse ones. Each hit left a mark, but he kept fighting. 10 minutes passed. Swift's attacks didn't slow down. If anything, they got faster. Jack's body was covered in bruises, and his breathing became harder. In the stands, Lord Crimson smiled, sure that the human would break soon. Then something changed. Swift launched another complex attack, but this time Jack didn't try to dodge. Instead, he stepped forward, taking 2 hard hits to land one of his own. The crowd gasped as Swift stumbled back, surprised by the human's willingness to take damage to cause it. "Why won't you fall?" Swift hissed, launching another wave of strikes. "No one can take this much punishment." Jack didn't answer. His face showed pain, but his eyes stayed focused. He had learned something about Swift's fighting style. It was beautiful but predictable. Like a complex dance, it had patterns. And humans were good at finding patterns. 20 minutes into the fight, Jack was badly hurt. His left arm hung awkwardly, and blood trickled from several cuts. But Swift wasn't winning easily anymore. The 6-armed fighter had never faced an opponent who could take so much damage and keep fighting. In the fighter's area, Blue watched with growing respect. He had seen many warriors show courage, but this was different. This was the legendary human endurance he had heard about, the ability to keep going when any sensible being would quit. Swift launched his finishing move, a combination attack that had ended many fights before. All 6 weapons struck at once in a blur of motion. The crowd leaned forward, expecting to see the human finally fall. Instead, they saw something impossible. Jack took the hits but grabbed one of Swift's arms in the process. Before the alien could pull back, Jack used the momentum to throw him off balance. Swift's perfect coordination broke for just a moment. That moment was all Jack needed. He struck 3 quick hits, nothing fancy, just straight punches to spots he had noticed were slightly slower to defend. Swift's eyes widened in shock as 2 of his arms went numb. The alien fighter tried to recover, but his perfect balance was gone. Without all 6 arms working together, his complex moves fell apart. Jack, despite his injuries, pressed his advantage. His strikes weren't as fast or fancy as Swift's, but each one had the full power of human determination behind it. The end came suddenly. Swift, trying to compensate for his numb arms, made a mistake in his footwork. Jack swept the alien's legs out from under him, using a simple move that Earth soldiers had practiced for centuries. Swift hit the ground hard, and before he could recover, Jack had him in a hold that even 6 arms couldn't break. The referee counted down. Swift tried to fight free, but couldn't move. For the first time in his career, his speed and extra arms hadn't been enough. When the match ended, the medical team rushed in. They were shocked to find Jack still standing despite his injuries. Even more shocking was his refusal to leave the ring until he had helped Swift up, showing respect just as he had with Rock. As the doctors led Jack away for treatment, the crowd sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something they didn't think possible. A human winning not through strength or speed, but through sheer unwillingness to give up. In his private box, Lord Crimson gripped his chair so hard it cracked. This human wasn't just winning fights anymore. He was winning hearts and minds. The medical bay worked overtime to heal Jack's injuries before the final match. His fight with Swift had left him with 3 cracked ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and dozens of bruises. The doctor said he shouldn't fight for at least a week, but the championship match couldn't wait. Blue visited while Jack was recovering. Thunder is different from anyone you fought, he warned. They made him in laboratories, designed him to be the perfect warrior. He's never lost a match, never even been hurt. The arena buzzed with excitement on the day of the final fight. Every seat was filled, and the betting rings were chaos. Despite Jack's victories, the odds still favored Thunder heavily. The champion had held his title for 3 years, defeating every challenger in less than 5 minutes. Lord Crimson made his final move before the match. He visited Thunder's preparation room. "This human is making our people look weak," he told the champion. "Don't just beat him. Destroy him. Show everyone why humans should stay in their place." Thunder didn't reply. He didn't need to. His record spoke for itself. 20 championship fights, 20 victories, all by knockout. His engineered body combined the strength of rock with the speed of Swift, but without any of their weaknesses. When Jack entered the ring, the crowd fell silent. Many thought this would be his last fight, not just in the tournament, but ever. Thunder stood waiting, his engineered muscles moving smoothly under skin that shimmered like metal. "You've surprised everyone by getting this far," Thunder said, his voice perfectly controlled like everything else about him. "But this ends here. You can't beat perfection." The fight started, and immediately Jack knew this was different. Thunder moved with impossible speed and power. His first punch cracked the arena floor where Jack had been standing a split second before. His second punch came so fast it broke the sound barrier. Jack couldn't dodge everything. A glancing blow sent him spinning across the ring. He rolled back to his feet, but Thunder was already there. Another hit slammed him into the barrier. The crowd winced. This was the beating they had expected humans to take from the beginning. But Jack didn't stay down. He stood up again, and something in his eyes made Thunder pause. The engineered champion had seen every emotion in his opponents: fear, anger, desperation. But he'd never seen this calm determination before. "Why do you keep getting up?" Thunder asked, honestly curious. "You must know you can't win." Jack spat blood and smiled. "Humans don't need to know we can win. We just need to know that giving up would be worse than anything you can do to us." The fight continued, but something had changed. Thunder's perfect technique couldn't finish Jack quickly, and that had never happened before. The champion began to feel something new: frustration. His engineered mind calculated every move perfectly, but the human kept surviving, kept fighting back. 20 minutes passed, the longest fight of Thunder's career. His perfect attacks began to show tiny flaws, not because he was tired. His engineered body didn't get tired, but his frustration grew with each moment Jack refused to lose. In the stands, aliens watched in amazement. They had come expecting a quick execution. Instead, they saw a human taking the worst punishment they'd ever witnessed, and somehow still fighting back. Some began to cheer for Jack, their voices growing louder each time he stood up again. Lord Crimson gripped his chair, shouting for Thunder to finish it. But the champion's perfect calm was cracking. For the first time in his life, his opponents didn't follow the patterns his enhanced mind predicted. Humans, he was learning, didn't break when his calculations said they should break. An hour into the fight, Jack could barely stand. One eye was swollen shut, and he breathed in short gasps. But his good eye stayed locked on Thunder, and his guard never dropped. The engineered champion stared at him with something close to fear. "What are you?" Thunder whispered. "Just human," Jack answered, and humans never learned when to quit. The final round began, and the station held its breath. Thunder's perfect technique faced off against humanity's stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy watched, knowing that more than just a championship hung in the balance. This fight would decide if humans belonged among the stars. Thunder launched his final attack with everything his engineered body could give. His fists moved faster than most eyes could follow, each strike powerful enough to break stone. But for the first time in his life, the perfect champion fought with doubt in his mind. Jack met the attack head-on. He didn't try to match Thunder's speed or power. He couldn't. Instead, he did something that confused everyone watching. He stepped into the attacks, letting them land while moving closer to Thunder with each hit. The champion's enhanced mind couldn't understand it. His calculations said Jack should have fallen long ago. The human's body showed every sign of reaching its limits. Bruised, bleeding, barely standing. But something in Jack's eyes burned brighter with each hit he took. "This isn't possible," Thunder said, his perfect voice showing stress for the first time. "You have no enhancement, no genetic engineering. You're just human." Jack managed a smile through bloody lips. "That's what none of you understand. Being just human is enough." The crowd watched in complete silence as Jack closed the distance. Thunder's strikes became less precise, his frustration growing as his opponent refused to follow any pattern his enhanced mind could predict. For the first time, the champion felt something like fear. Jack's first solid hit caught Thunder by surprise. It wasn't particularly fast or strong, but it landed exactly where the champion's defense was weakest. A flaw so small that only someone who had studied every moment of the fight could have found it. Thunder stepped back, more shocked than hurt. His enhanced body barely felt pain, but the fact that this human had managed to hit him at all shook his confidence. He launched another series of perfect strikes, but Jack kept coming forward, kept taking hits to get closer. Blue watched from the fighter's area, understanding what was happening. Thunder had been designed to be perfect, but he had never faced an opponent who simply refused to accept defeat. The champion's greatest weakness wasn't in his enhanced body. It was in his mind, which couldn't handle something that defied its calculations. Jack landed another hit and another. None of them were powerful enough to really hurt Thunder, but each one proved that the champion's perfect defense had holes. The crowd began to cheer for the human, their voices growing louder with each moment he stayed standing. In his private box, Lord Crimson watched in horror as his champion began to falter. Thunder's moves became less precise, his perfect technique showing cracks as he faced something his enhanced mind couldn't process, an opponent who grew stronger from punishment that should have destroyed him. The end came suddenly. Thunder, frustrated beyond his programming, put too much power into one punch. Jack didn't dodge. He took the hit directly. The impact threw him across the ring, but he grabbed Thunder's arm in the process. As he fell, he pulled the champion off balance for just a moment. That moment was all he needed. Jack's last attack wasn't fancy or powerful. It was a simple move, one that human fighters had used for thousands of years. He swept Thunder's legs while the champion was off balance, using the engineered fighter's own perfect body weight against him. Thunder fell for the first time in his life. Before his enhanced reflexes could recover, Jack locked him in a hold that even engineered muscles couldn't break. The crowd counted down with the referee, their voices shaking the station. When the bell rang, the arena exploded with cheers. The impossible had happened. A regular human had defeated the perfect champion. Thunder lay on the mat, his enhanced mind still trying to understand how his perfection had failed. Jack stood up slowly, his body pushed far beyond normal human limits. He helped Thunder to his feet, just as he had done with every opponent. The champion stared at him with new understanding. "Now I know why they call you human," Thunder said quietly. "It's not an insult anymore. It's a reminder that some things are stronger than perfection." The story of that fight spread across the galaxy. Aliens began to look at humans differently, not as weak creatures to be protected or controlled, but as beings who had earned their place among the stars. In training halls across human colonies, Instructors told new fighters about the day a regular human showed the galaxy that determination could beat perfection. Lord Crimson's betting empire crumbled as more humans entered tournaments, each one showing the same unbreakable spirit. Blue started a new fighting school where humans taught aliens about endurance and determination, while aliens taught humans about their different strengths. And Jack, he returned to Earth, carrying the championship belt, and something more important, the respect of a galaxy that had learned never to underestimate the power of being human.